Hey guys, welcome back to Young Americans Abroad, your best place for weekly content on young American soccer players playing overseas. My name is Austin Van Schurn.
My name is Patrick Ferry.
And welcome to our show. Well, guys, what an action-packed weekend we had this week, not only abroad, also in MLS. We had a lot of young scorers on the sheet. And Pat, the future's looking bright.
Future's looking pretty bright, Austin. Is definitely, like you said, just packed with new transfers, rumors, and players just performing so well. And it's nice to kind of get in the mindset back, too, where the U.S. is potentially having some of those camps now with more MLS based in October and November. Possibly the European Americans contingent kind of comes in. So all this exciting news now, kind of players are turning on the jets here for impressing Berhalter coming up.
Yeah, that's a good point. We haven't seen the USMNT in action since January. So yeah,
a long time.
Yeah, really. So it's definitely something to look forward to this fall. One maybe bright moment out of this whole year with the USMNT would probably be fun. So, with that being said, Pat, like you said earlier, we have a lot to talk about today, including one monumental transfer of a USMNT regular.
And another fan favorite, Weah winger over in France, returning to the pitch after a long injury spell.
And finally, some more transfer moves you want to keep your eye on. So make sure you stay with us because all that and more is in today's episode. So to start our episode today, we have the big move, Pat, and that's Weston McKennie going to Juventus. So, Pat, this is a move that really materialized kind of overnight and not something that we were really expecting, just a week ago. We were talking about Southampton, Newcastle, Hertha Berlin, which seems like that, got axed maybe a few days before this move. So, a huge move for one of our regular USMNT stars.
Unreal, Austin. I mean, I woke up and I had to check my phone a few times and we were communicating back. Is this real? Is this true? It's unbelievable. I mean, just the club size of Juventus, had those big names, star players, their history, Serie A dominance, and McKennie joining a team where he's had that tough situation at Schalke, and it'll be so interesting to see him kind of come in with this new wave and kind of this almost change of culture Juventus is slowly having.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Schalke have definitely struggled the past few years, and I thought McKennie played pretty well since restart. Obviously, Schalke did not play well as a team, but I think you really saw McKennie kind of take some more leadership role with that team and kind of just, he kind of was to the point where, if the team wasn't going to play well, he certainly wasn't going to be, his performances weren't going to be dragged down by the team. So I thought you really saw some good defensive performances at the end of the season. Like you said, Pat, Juventus are kind of shifting their identity a little bit. We don't know too much, but obviously with Andrea Pirlo at the club now, they're going to play a lot different than they played last year. So I think, in talking about that, maybe you can talk about it a little bit more. That's what's kind of exciting about this move.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And just from, a quick review from Total Soccer and some other, awesome Serie A experts. And I guess there was a kind of a Instagram live or some discussions between Pirlo, Cannavaro, some of these Italian legends, and kind of, this is new territory for Juventus and a bold move, with Pirlo coming to the helm at such a huge club with Ronaldo and that star power, where how do you want the team kind of be set up, their style of play? And, it's going to be an attacking side, what it seems like. And if they lose the ball, to have people 3, 4, 5 guys immediately sprint after, that hunger and desire to win the ball back immediately. So fully possessive team, somebody, that has those dynamic, athletic, aggressive midfielders that are able to close down in terms of possession and win those tackles. So that seems to be an interesting fit for McKennie, Austin.
Yeah, it sounds like it. I think you described perfectly what I've been hearing kind of all over the place about Pirlo. And, he doesn't have much coaching experience yet. So maybe, his style and philosophy will change as he goes. But like you said, that high pressing style of play definitely suits Weston McKennie's skill set, and kind of is really what excites me about this move. To go into a little bit more, the first part about this move is it's actually a loan for 4.5 million euros. And then Juventus have the option to buy for 18.5 million euros. So, some people might get a little timid, Pat, about the loan move. But I think, this is just the way Juventus does business. If you look at Serie A, a lot of deals are structured this way where players go on loan for a season and then actually get purchased the next year after. So, I don't think people should shy away from this move because of that. Also, it sounds like the stipulations to buy McKennie are, we've heard two different options, or two different rumors, I should say. One is that Juventus make the Champions League, which, Pat, I think is maybe safe to say, knock on wood. You don't want to jinx things, but
I agree.
Have won the Serie A title 9 years in a row now. So, even if they don't win it this year, Inter is looking pretty good. I think they're going to make the Champions League. I think they if they don't make the Champions League, Ronaldo will probably leave them. And then the other option, or rumor out there for that purchase deal, is he has to play in more than 60% of games. So that one's a little bit tougher on McKennie. We'll talk about where he fits in terms of starting or coming off the bench, things like that, a little bit later. But I think, even if that's not the case, Juventus, I still think, have an interest to spend the money on McKennie. It's under 20 million for the purchase option. So I think it would be money well spent, personally.
Yeah, I agree. And especially, like you said, it's very common for Serie A clubs to do this in the way of business with that loan to buy. And just with COVID going on and everything as well, a lot of clubs, in terms of their finances and budgeting purposes, where they want to put that on the next calendar's books. But just wanted to mention that. But nonetheless, Austin, it will be very interesting to see, like you said, where McKennie kind of fits into the fold. Like you said, he really developed at Schalke from going to all those different positions, every position he's possibly played. Gaining experience, and then finally kind of locking down his role and his niche, which he's carving out. But again, like you said, the good things in terms of being able to win the ball back and kind of chase people around like a madman sometimes, I think is some skills that he really does have. And it'll be interesting to see him play on a team that has more possession, instead of kind of getting those minimal chances where sometimes maybe he tries to do too much with the limited opportunities and loses the ball. So it'll be kind of intriguing how he adapts in that regard.
Yeah, that's a great point. Schalke, like we've said and well documented, they weren't a team that had a lot of creativity offensively. So a lot of times, Weston would kind of take matters into his own hands and try to be a creative midfielder, which he does have some flair, so to speak. I think he does play one-touch passing pretty well. Obviously there was a decent amount of turnovers for him last year, and also, the year before. So, maybe that's a bad part of his game, but I do think he's got the ability to do that. I just think, that team wasn't the best. And I think, he kind of was in the mindset of, I'm going to try things, even if it doesn't come off, because, this team needs someone to do that. So, like you said, Pat, going into it a little bit more, looking at Juventus's midfield for this upcoming year, they swapped basically Miralem Pjanic for Arthur from Barcelona. So Arthur got some good playing time at Barcelona, looked like a player that's got a pretty bright future, has had some off the field issues. There was a story after the restart in La Liga where I guess he didn't come back because he didn't really want to play or something. And then
interesting.
Had some issues where he was not allowed on the team or at the training facility, but then showed up one day and then got told to go home. It was kind of a little bit of off the field drama, but nonetheless, I think he's a player that, is going to be a starter in midfield for them. It seems like, Andrea Pirlo is going to play a 4-3-3 of some sort, right, with three midfielders. So you got to think he's going to be one of those midfielders that's going to play. Then they also have Rodrigo Bentancur, who played a lot for Juventus last year. After Milan Pjanic, he was definitely their second most played midfielder. and a very good, young Uruguayan midfielder. I believe he's going to be 22, or he already is 22. So you got to think he's probably going to be on the pitch. And then really the third midfielder in that midfield is kind of up for debate, and the spot's up for grabs. So you got some other players on the team like Aaron Ramsey, who's had his
your Arsenal boy.
Yeah. He's had some success in his career. Maybe not the amount of success we're all hoping at some point in time, but he's definitely a very senior midfielder and has some good quality. And then you got Rabiot, who's in midfield, who's a French player who's got great size and got a good amount of playing time last year, but definitely has his own kind of, I wouldn't say off the field issues, but he's had some stigma as being kind of not for the team at times, and is a super talented player, but maybe just not there.
Situation there.
Yeah. He just kind of, I don't know, rubs people the wrong way at times and has kind of been out of favor with this Juventus team. So we'll have to kind of see how, Pirlo starts off with him, because, Pirlo was a great midfielder. Maybe he can get the best out of Rabiot and kind of get him back into shape. But then you got on the roster still Sami Khedira. So Sami Khedira is supposedly on the way out at Juventus. Played a few minutes last year, played a little under 1,000, but was really spent most of the year injured. So if everything's that we're hearing is true, it doesn't seem like he's going to be in their plans this year. So I think when you look at it, Weston McKennie is one of 5 midfielders, 3 that are going to start games. So I think there's going to be a lot of minutes for him there. When you look at last year, the players that they had and the minutes that they got, Blaise Matuidi left to Inter Miami. He played about 3,000 minutes. And then you have Khedira, who's probably going to leave, who played about 1,000 minutes. So that's really 4,000 minutes there in that midfield that have to be assigned to other players. And that's even with Artur picking up Miralem Pjanic's minutes, which was, I think, close to like 3,300 minutes. So, I think Weston, even if he doesn't start, personally, I think Rabiot is going to kind of fill that third midfielder position, whether it's, as a CDM, maybe Bentancur plays the CDM position and he kind of plays a little further up the field. I think McKennie is going to be rotated in that defensive midfielder role. I think that's where they kind of see him fit into this team. And if he doesn't start every game, I think he's going to be, one of the first midfielders off the bench and look to make an impact in a lot of games, even early on.
Yeah, completely agree, Austin. I mean, it is interesting because, there's a lot of talent there where you just mentioned, from former Barcelona, obviously Juventus there with and then also even Rabiot with PSG ties. So that's elite talent coming in. Like you said, they do have their own kind of issues here and there, and there's a lot of game time in terms of Serie A where maybe he won't be a starter right away, but comes in for some of those mid-level, low-level Serie A games, as well as the Coppa Italia to the Champions League. There's a lot of competitions to be played there and plenty of minutes, like you just mentioned.
Yeah, and that's a great point. Juventus plays in, I would say at least 3 different competitions: the Cup, competition there in Italy, Serie A, and Champions League. So you're talking about a lot of minutes to go around for these players. And there's always the potential that Juventus sign another midfielder. There's been some links to Hassim Aouar from Lyon, who's a fantastic midfielder. And if he did sign for Juventus, he would probably be that third starter. But that's not the case right now. So you got right around 4,000 minutes, like I said, to go to 5 midfielders. So I think I like Weston's chances. In terms of how he fits in Serie A, Pat. So I did some watching of highlights this past weekend and kind of saw what Juventus did last year. Obviously, they're going to be a little bit different with Pirlo this year, but Juventus really like to kind of push play at times last year. Matuidi did a really good job, in my opinion. Working up the field and kind of creating opportunities by being a little bit more free to move, so to speak. I really liked what I saw. I think, Weston actually exhibits a lot of characteristics that Blaise Matuidi has. So I really like, if he can kind of make that same impact and kind of fill that role. Again, obviously they may play a little bit different, but Serie A as a whole, from what I saw, plays a little bit slower. So I think that might be something he has to get used to. Is just the speed of play is just a lot slower. Players like to take their time moving the ball up the field. It's not as rapid as like an English style of play where it's literally
right.
So I do think, Weston kind of plays in that style. So I think, he may have to be a little, use a little bit more finesse to kind of, fit into Serie A a little bit of time to kind of get in the mindset of that. So I think that's something to look for. But I do like how, dynamic of a player he is compared to some of the other players in Serie A. I think that's going to suit him well in the long term.
Absolutely. And what's interesting too, like you kind of mentioned about Serie A, Juventus specifically, and the culture, but Serie A generally seems like Italian football, and what I was kind of reading too, and I know it's shifting a little bit, but they're very much, I guess, kind of like rigid, disciplined, very tactical. Certain players kind of have their certain responsibilities in certain areas where, maybe some other leagues across are more free flowing, I guess. And not to say that, there's certain roles, and like we described with Matuidi, but generally it's been interesting because Serie A traditionally has been very if that kind of makes sense, very kind of, rigid, structured, a lot of tactics in certain areas that you're in charge of, a lot of direction.
Yeah. And I could definitely see that when I watch some of these highlights. It's a lot of players thinking through their movement and kind of, playing different types of passes than you see in other leagues. So a lot more, not long ball, so to speak, but they definitely like to keep their space and kind of move the ball. Where I feel like in the Bundesliga does a decent job of that. I feel like the Bundesliga is the perfect blend of
yeah, it really is.
Style, and then also that English style where you can get on the break and kind of, make things happen at pace. So I think there's going to be, just a slower tempo and more nuance that Weston may have to learn. But I think on the defensive side of things, that energy that he's going to bring could really lend himself to be helpful for this Juventus team, because he's really the main defensive midfielder in this rotation right now. So, if he can kind of carve out a niche and not worry about, maybe some of the offensive things and kind of just getting up the field, maybe if he stays back, I think that's going to suit him well. The other thing too, I want to mention real quick before we kind of move on from Weston. I know it's a big day at American soccer, but he's very good at winning headers. That's something that, looking at a lot of the analysis people have done, especially this one great thread that a Southampton fan did when we thought he was going to Southampton. It really showed what we've kind of seen from him, in that he's an elite header of the ball, winner of the ball in the air. So I think, coming to a team like Juventus where they have, great set piece takers like Ronaldo, I'm sure Dybala takes some set pieces from time to time. I haven't watched too much of Juventus, in Serie A. So
you're watching now.
For sure. But you got to think that, that asset of his game is just gonna help Juventus as well. So yeah, I think the final thing to end on too, Pat, is just finally getting a chance to see one of our players play with a person of the stature and player of the stature of Cristiano Ronaldo. I think that's
unreal,
pretty cool, and a little awesome surreal moment the first time we see it.
I was going to mention that too, right at the end, Austin. That's just unbelievable to play with somebody of that caliber, like our generations. The Messi and Ronaldo. Those two are just on another level, and to be able to train day in, day out, see Ronaldo and Dybala and all these other, just the Juventus way. I think we're going to see McKennie, and I'm not again making any bold predictions, but I think this is going to drastically increase and improve McKennie's game, being around and playing with players of this level.
Yeah, I do too. I think it's going to help us in the long term too, from a USMNT perspective, because I just think being in that environment is just going to be so helpful to him, and just kind of give him a different perception of what he should be aiming for. I think Weston is a very motivated individual, and I think he brings a lot of that intensity we like to see to every game he plays in. But just being in that world-class environment, that's really what Juventus is. They're not challenging for Serie A this year in their minds. They're challenging for the Champions League, the trophy, the Champions League trophy. They're trying to win Champions League. Ronaldo only has a few more years left. So, if they're able to do that, that would be an insane experience for any American player. So, yeah, I think with that being said, Pat, that's the big move this week. I feel like we spent longer than we usually do on a player, but I think you have to if it's a player going to Juventus. That's a pretty big deal.
Completely agree. And again, like you said, I can't believe it's actually happening. We had to cover it for you guys and provide our analysis and some details and just kind of gather our thoughts around it, just because everybody in American soccer, this is it. This is the headline. But like you said, kind of shifting gears here over to France. Some other really fantastic news, and we don't want this to be overshadowed, with McKennie and everything. But it's great to see the 20-year-old Timo Weah, one of our former Scottish Yankees, Austin, over back, in France with Lille, where he actually subbed on in the 78th minute for the Turkish forward Yilmaz in a 1-0 win against Reims. So again, he's had just these trials and tribulations where he, in the last 4 months, I think it's been 3 hamstring injuries, or it could be, the reverse there, but a lot of hamstring injuries. And I think the last one was February 16th against Marseille on his return after a month playoff.
Yeah.
Awesome. It's just been unreal. And you can see, I know Tim posted something, I believe, on Instagram or Twitter, where it's like this, just this huge sigh of relief where he's, had his comeback journey, put his head down, and finally getting some minutes here right away. And, almost had a chance to score where he broke down the right side of the flank there. Still had that speed and agility, and just kind of narrowly missed it. Trying to curl it into the goal there is unfortunate to miss. But again, it's nice to see him back on the field.
Yeah, it was really great to see him make his return this weekend. He almost sealed it with a goal. But I do think, he still has that special ability that we really don't have from anyone else. It's that mix of pace and then also just dribbling and skill with the ball at his feet. He's someone who kind of got that skill rubbed off on him from his time at PSG. I personally think. I
agree.
That tries things that not many other players in our pool tries, and he has some success at it too. So I think this long injury layoff obviously sucked. It's something that could derail his potential, so to speak, or could set him off the course he was on. But I think he's just a different type of player, and also someone that we shouldn't discount. He's a player that's really kind of risen past our expectations of him, at least from a youth level. His last name obviously gives him a lot of expectation, but I do think there was a point in time where we kind of, weren't really sure he was going to make it to the level he's already, currently at. So I think going forward, I think he's got a bright future still, and, people should be excited about him.
Completely agree, Austin. And just in terms of the, I guess, competition, or just kind of their attacking options that Lille has, obviously exciting, dynamic, young, another Canadian just making waves, Jonathan David, somebody that has started here and seems to kind of be pretty well positioned in that lineup there, as well as another player that's kind of a midfielder that's played forward, Jonathan, I think it's Ikane, if I could be pronouncing that wrong.
Kone, I think.
Kone, Austin, thank you. So again, he's someone that's being linked with even a while back Dortmund apparently, but now more Leicester. So it seems to be a lot of interest in him, and some, I think, in the back in terms of preseason, where there's been some times where he hasn't played, just with these rumors going on. So I'm not sure how long he'll be there, but again, and they do have, like I just mentioned, where Timo did come in for that Turkish forward who's, I believe 34 or 35, so, or the striker there. So interesting scenario at Lille. Again, a team that is pretty well positioned. I wouldn't say, top 3 or 4 or anything, but maybe right outside there. And you can kind of dive into it too and want your opinion, Austin. But again, I think Weah it's nice to see him get minutes right away, especially returning from injury. And again, I think we can just expect big things moving forward. I hope he just is able to stay healthy and just have a successful season. And not to say I don't want him to try too hard, but just don't push it too much, because hamstrings are very brutal, especially after a few.
Yeah, I don't know. I really hope it's not a recurring thing. You know, Christian Pulisic suffered a hamstring injury to end his season too, so hopefully it's not right. It's not going to affect him either. But yeah, I think, you know, Lille's, like you said, Pat, a decent team. I think they're right in that conversation for 4 to 5. You know, you got PSG. Lyon's still going to be pretty good, even if they lose a few players. Marseille's not bad. Stade de Rennes having a great past, you know, 2 years or so. They got Camavinga, who's a fantastic midfielder. So I do think they're kind of right around that Champions League, Europa League spot in France. But yeah, what do you think, Pat, is a good target for Tim Weah to set in terms of goals and assists? What would you kind of hope to see from him?
Yeah, that's a good question. Just in terms of, you know, the minutes, I don't think we'll see him, and I don't know if he even should. I'm not sure. Like, you know, over that 3,000 minute mark, or, you know, 3,300, that'd be, again, I don't want to. I'm not no athletic trainer, but in terms of goals and assists, I think it'd be nice to see him, you know, a little bit over that, and, you know, 7 to 8 goals and maybe 5 or 6 assists. You know, somewhere in that range, a little bit over. I think would be pretty successful. Just in terms of the minutes. Again, there's still some competition there, but what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate. You know, I think he's got the potential to get some significant playing time this year. So, you know, if he can kind of work his way into that starting 11, then I think you know, maybe a little above those numbers would be a great target. But you know, we'll have to see. I think if he can get back on the field, stay healthy, and kind of, you know, get maybe over 1,000 minutes, 1,500 minutes this year, I think next year his goal should be, you know, like 20 goals in Ligue 1, which I think
I agree.
Not right now. But, you know, we saw Victor Osimhen move to Lille last year and do something similar. He didn't have 20 goals, but you know, I think Tim Weah is capable of it. We'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, we'll have to keep monitoring. Like you said, a very unique player. We don't really have necessarily in the pool where he almost, I don't even want to say has a one set identity, but can do so many different things in the way he plays and creativity, but also directness too, where he can kind of shift in and be that central point striker, but also on the wing. So it's a very intriguing player. And like you said, we'll just have to keep monitoring. But I know you got some exciting news potentially for one of our American fullbacks here.
Yeah, that's true. So this move is not confirmed yet, but we've heard some pretty concrete, you know, facts on it, and that's Reggie Cannon moving to Boa Vista. So Boa Vista is a team in Portugal, and we should also say, you know, it's funny we're coming away from the Tim Weah segment, but Boa Vista is actually linked with Lille, so there's like a partnership in place with Lille. So we're not sure if this move is going to be potentially Reggie getting transferred to Lille and loaned to Boa Vista.
Interesting.
If Reggie just is getting transferred to Boa Vista, but it looks like he's going to be playing in Portugal next year. So with that being said, Pat, you know, Boa Vista is an interesting team, not maybe the level we we're expecting out of this move for Reggie. You know, we have heard some teams in the championship linked with him. You know, Marseille back in the day was a team that was kind of interested in him. So, you know, I think we had our sights set on him maybe landing somewhere a little bit higher in caliber. But, you know, with that being said, the Portuguese league is right on par with like the Eredivisie. And I would kind of say, and this is from what I've seen a little bit, I haven't watched too much of it, but from what other people have kind of told me who have watched that league a little bit more, it's kind of a little bit above the Eredivisie. So the Eredivisie is more of a possession-based league. Portugal is more of like a athletic, skilled league,
right?
More of a skilled league, I would say. I don't know what way to say it best, but you know, I think that's not a bad move when you look at it that way. You know, Boa Vista is a team last year that finished in 12th place in this league, so definitely some you know, things to be figured out for this year, and hopefully Reggie can be a part of getting them back into a you know, a better standing as a club. But you know, what is good and what I like about this move personally is that, you know, right back is a position they have 0 right backs at right now on their roster. So, I think if he goes to this team, he's going to get, all the playing time as a right back, and be a day one starter, which going to a European club and being a day one starter from MLS is not something we see very often. I don't think I can pinpoint someone off the top of my head that's American that's really, really done that. Maybe there's someone out there in the past that has really done it recently, but to my remembrance, I can't think of anyone. So I think, if he can go into that club and kind of nail down that starting role, which I think he will, then it could be a good place for him to kind of get his feet wet and then, hopefully move on to bigger and better things when time comes.
Right. And it's so intriguing that, just being linked with that Portuguese team, and it just honestly didn't see it coming, Austin. I know, obviously, maybe, like you said, that partnership's interesting. I didn't even know that with Lille. But, again, Cannon's a player that's been linked a lot abroad. And there's been multiple leagues and rumored offers for him. And it seems like, I think you brought it up too, which is just a great point, just in terms of the timeline to maybe go out here and really push himself. Again, like you said, get minutes for in a top league, again, maybe not the top team, and then kind of project out maybe that next year or two to really get noticeable and on the radar of bigger clubs, especially from the U.S. National team perspective, Austin.
Yeah, because we do have the World Cup coming up in 2022. So, if he waited till next year and the move kind of went sour, maybe he held out for a bigger club and didn't get enough playing time, then, maybe he wouldn't be in that conversation anymore. I really don't know what the future would have held. But, at this club, I think the thought is, get consistent playing time, get on other teams' radar, like you said, and hopefully, make that World Cup qualifying team and kind of prove it in there and prove hopefully over the coming 2 years that he's capable of making the squad. Right back is definitely more crowded than it's been in the past. Some people are hating on DeAndre Yedlin and kind of don't see him as a USMNT player anymore. Personally, I think, he's someone who's got the speed to do it. He's got a lot of experience. He's been to a World Cup, which a lot of these players on this new roster can't really say. And then you have Sergiño Dest, who's, I think going to be the starting right back, in the future. So, he's got two pretty high caliber players to fight for time with. So I think, getting his feet wet and settled in Europe is a big next step for him.
Yeah, like you said, couldn't agree more. That competition, and I'll say again, maybe Yedlin so lacking sometimes closing out defensively, but I think, like you said, he's still a very crucial player, and still, again, with the Newcastle side, obviously there's a lot of rumors and things going on right now, but has had a pretty good rise in terms of with Newcastle and his ventures over in England, where obviously Tottenham was another story, but he kind of rebounded from there and was able to get his career on track over abroad, and somebody that's very crucial, as well as, like you mentioned, Sergiño, who is kind of almost the present and future there. That Cannon really does need to elevate and step that game up and compete at the highest level and keep going. So you can kind of tell that from his mentality on and off the pitch. You've seen him with the national team in some camps that Cannon is definitely somebody almost similar to McKennie, with that fire and tenacity, and just a lot of these young guys you can see coming up that have that,
chip on their shoulder.
Chip on their shoulder, and they're not afraid to try something new and prove people wrong and really elevate their games, and not just kind of stay comfortable getting minutes, in certain leagues.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah, I think that's a great thing about our new generation coming up, is they're not satisfied easily. So with that being said, we wish Reggie the best and a lot of luck in this move. And let's move on to our next player, Pat.
That's right, Austin. We have over some interesting rumors back with Man City's player here with Erik Palmer-Brown and Austrian Vines. So again, Austrian Vines was very happy with EPB this past loan, and Peter Stoger, who I know you know fairly well from the Durkin days. But yeah, again, they were very happy with Erik, and to have somebody come back and is familiar with the system, knows the league for another year-long loan is very intriguing. So I think that would be a really good spot for him to just go back and develop his game, mold his craft. We saw some great moments and highlights from him in terms of some heading goals and improving defensively. Again, with a league that has, Red Bull Salzburg and Austrian league is fairly has some fairly good competition, and again, it just seems like a good place to be instead of being shipped off to different clubs every year.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you, Pat. In the past, and maybe it's good not to look back in his career. In the past, we thought he was going to be playing at like Porto, a team like
right.
Kind of, when he went to Man City, we thought maybe he'd be able to find a way into there, or at least get a top level loan like to a top 5 league. But like you said, he's kind of carved out a good niche at Vine, and he played, I think, close to 2,000 minutes last year, if I'm not mistaken. I don't have that in front of me at the moment, but once he got into the team last year, he stayed in the team. And they didn't have the best season, but I do think it's just a club that's got some history. And like you said, Peter Stoger, who's their coach there at the moment, he's pretty high on them. So I think if you got a coach that supports you and you're getting consistent minutes, I think that's a good thing for me, and hopefully it'll help in his development even more.
Completely agree, and wanted to quickly add here, Austin, like you just mentioned the minutes, he did appear in 26 matches across all competitions. So when you kind of mix in the start substitutes mainly as a starter, I mean that's a good amount of minutes there. I'm sure you can do the math better than me, but nonetheless, I think just like you said, I think Erik Palmer-Brown's in an interesting situation where he is challenging himself overseas. Has the ability to kind of take this next year, and I think maybe, again, I have to look into the Man City contract, maybe but it seems like maybe he could make a jump up to a next tier, depending on how this following year goes, and kind of shoot for more competition, whether it's in a more competitive league or with a top team there, because that center back pool is getting a little, I wouldn't say completely full, but it's deeper, and he needs to kind of step up where he's not 17, 18. He's still a young player, but it's a crucial time in his development to really push and see his limits.
Yeah, that's a good point. Mark McKenzie, Miles Robinson, Chris Richards, there's a lot of young center backs coming up at the moment. So like you said, I think, play there and Vine one more year, do well, and then, maybe move on to the championship or something like that. That's all for Erik today. Now let's head over to Sebastian Soto. So just wanted to mention real quick that Sebastian actually signed on loan to Telstar. So this is a club in the Eredivisie, which is one league below the Eredivisie in the Netherlands. And it's a club, Pat, that we've seen Americans at in the past.
We know it well, Austin. We know it well. Our boy Andrea, Kyle Scott.
Yeah, it's crazy to see this American pipeline going through Telstar with some mixed results. To be completely honest, I think Andrea had a good season there, kind of catapulted him to where he is today. And then Kyle Scott, not so much. But let's hope Sebastian falls more in the vein of Andrea and gets a lot of playing time and a lot of, scores a lot of goals. So looking at the roster, just from a very outside perspective, we don't know too much about this team, since when we kind of saw Andrea there. But they basically have 3 strikers right now on the roster. And Sebastian's the highest rated or most expensive, I should say, according to Transfermarkt. So again, it's Transfermarkt. It's, a club that, is just going to be desperate to play whoever produces. So I think, Sebastian's really got to kind of jump in, Pat, and take hold of his career now that he's had, that long layoff and, finally got a decent move to Norwich City. I mean, if he can play there one day, I don't think that's bad. That's a bad place for him to play most of his career. But, he's really got to kind of prove it in this 1 year on loan at Telstar.
And that's the key. I wanted to quickly mention just being able to put your head down and grind. He had a again, just kind of a tumultuous and interesting situation with Hanover and all that. Obviously, we don't know from inside, but we can only see outside and kind of the rumors and things that were being said. But yeah, it's Sebastian's time to really put his head down and grind, like you said, because again, that's another player where he had his prospects were very high. He's been involved with the youth setup and scoring some goals with the youth teams there for various tournaments. And again, somebody I think that I wouldn't say is completely fading, still kind of on the spotlight in the background, but if he can really perform well here, and again, like you said, one day, whether it's Norwich or elsewhere or the top team, that he could still be a very crucial player. But I think somebody that we just have to monitor closely this year, because personally for me, he's kind of on the fringe.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. And I think, this year is going to be big in terms of, what we see from him. I think if he produces this year in a league that, allows a lot of goals, it's, the Netherlands is a league, and, I guess multiple leagues, the Eredivisie and the Eredivisie, they're very generous to strikers and usually see a lot of goals scored in the Netherlands. So I think, if he doesn't score that many goals, if he doesn't get on the field much this year, then I don't think he's in such a great spot.
How many goals do you think, Sebastian, like a target range?
So I'm going to go high. He's got to score at least 15. I think if he scores over 10, it's like an okay year. But, sure. Andrea, when he was there, I think scored like 12 or 13 off the top of my head. I'm not exactly sure what it was, but he put up close to that 15 number. So I think, if we're at one point in time, we rated Sebastian higher than Andrea, at that point in his career. So I think if he's got if he wants that rating now and, wants that trajectory of his career, I think he's got to do more than 15 goals. What do you think, Pat? Score more than 15?
I like it. I think that's strong. And like you mentioned, to kind of compare to Andrea and his success there, again, it's not like we're asking him to score 15 in the Eredivisie, or the Bundesliga, but I think he's certainly capable of it. And we've seen some scoring sprees from him in terms of his youth career with the national team, and then, all the way up here. So I don't think that's anywhere out of the range.
Yeah. I think, we'll find out more when we get back underway here. I think the season starts pretty soon compared to other leagues. So hopefully we see him back on the pitch soon. And I'm going to throw it to you, Pat, for our final player today.
That's right. And a very interesting player who, again, is somebody that has had a long period out with injury, but he's back. And that's Marlon Fossey. So a very interesting, fullback with a lot of pace, and somebody who, like I mentioned, just kind of needs that opportunity to shine, and will be hopefully getting a lot of minutes here in League One with Shrewsbury Town FC. Obviously being loaned out from Fulham there. So again, Shrewsbury, and the manager mentioned, is very high and has been kind of monitoring Marlon for a while. There was a point, Austin, where he was about ready to make the Fulham debut there, making waves there, and even kind of on the national team radar here and there. Obviously not with the spot, but being called into the camps and things like that. So again, somebody that just we need to see more of, Austin.
Yeah, for sure. Like you said, he's been out injured a lot. He missed, I think it was the U20 CONCACAF Championship. I don't think it was the World Cup, but it was one of those tournaments due to injury. He was on the roster, was, I guess, the starter going into that tournament. I think that was when, Sergiño Dest was, kind of making his way up too. So, I think he's a player that's got talent, but like you said, Pat, just needs to get on the field and stay healthy.
Yeah, completely agree, because again, and I think you brought it off camera, I don't want to steal your thunder, but he's got the cool hair, right? All we have to have one player that has that flow. But again, his pace, his athleticism really fits the bill for the modern fullback in terms of getting up. And a lot of similarities to what you see in our pool, even from the outside back perspective, being able to bombard forward and create chances. So again, it'll be interesting to kind of see how he performs with Shrewsbury. We've seen some other players like Dwayne Holmes kind of develop down in those leagues and catapult up in terms of the career. Again, a player who's had some injury knocks, and let's just hope Marlon can kind of get back on the radar. And whether it's playing in Fulham starting spot, I know that's a long ways down the road. He's still very young, but being with that club, having that American link, and again, whether it's League One championship, I think he, is in a pretty good situation right now.
Yeah, and I'll throw one more name out there real quick, and that's Matt Olasunda. So Matt played
right.
last year in League One, and now is going to play in the championship this year. So that's kind of, I think, the move, or at least the year he should mold himself after and kind of look to have, because Matt played pretty well this year. So I think that's all for this part of our episode. Now let's head over, Pat, to Quick Kicks.
All right, guys, I think you know what time it is. We have a lot of players to talk about, especially for this segment, so it might not be as fast, but it's none other than Quick Kicks.
So you could test Dwayne Miller. It's Altidore over the wall, and that one is in! Josie Altidore from a long way out! The opening goal for the United States!
And to start off Quick Kicks, our first player will be over in Spain. Konrad de la Fuente is one of 5 Barcelona B players who will reportedly spend the entire preseason training with the first team. So we'll kind of have to keep monitoring that with the new coach, Ronald Koeman, coming in, the Dutchman, and wants to kind of see him in action. So let's hope Konrad can impress.
Yeah, that's exciting. I think with the whole Messi drama, they may be trying to get more youngsters involved. So hopefully Konrad can kind of capitalize. And then we have Josh Sargent. So Josh Sargent played 75 minutes and also scored a goal in Bremen's 4-0 friendly win over Groningen. So good to see Josh on the score sheet, And Florian Kohfeldt also had some good words for him, saying that he's definitely in his starting lineup if they have to start the season today. So I think that's a good place for Josh to start the season at.
That's awesome. And scoring goals. We like to see that from our strikers. And heading over to the Netherlands, where Richie Ledezma, young PSV, unfortunately, he had to sub out during the game. A 6-1 loss to Excelsior was pretty brutal. But Ledezma had a little knock to his ankle. It doesn't seem to be too much of a concern, so hopefully we'll see him back and healthy soon.
Yep, and that was in a young PSV game too. So hopefully like you said, we'll see him back soon, and hopefully with the first team.
Yeah, you're right.
Moving over to Germany again, we have Matthew Hoppe. So Matthew's been on a hot streak to start preseason, scoring the game-winning goal for Schalke 2 this weekend in their 2-1 win. So good to see Matt, doing good things.
That's right. Another striker forward. They're scoring a lot, so nice to see. And heading back to the Netherlands, Austin, Sergiño Dest started and played the full 90 minutes in a 2-2 friendly for Ajax against Union Berlin. And also want to mention, we had Alex Mendez also get a brief cameo and came on in the 83rd minute of that game as well. So it looks like you and I were talking here. Ajax is selling a few midfielders, and maybe Alex can move up.
Yeah, it looks like Donny van der Beek and another midfielder, Razvad Mazvevin. Excuse me, I don't know how you pronounce the name, but maybe some more time for Alex. We'll see. And going back to Schalke, we have Evan Rotundo. Evan had an assist in Schalke's U17's 2-1 win. So good to see Evan producing as well there over at Schalke.
Awesome for the assist. And going over to Nick Gioacchini for Caen in France, another start for him, and played 80 minutes in a 1-0 win against Ajaccio. So great to see him really solidifying that place in the starting lineup.
That's true. And then we have our Wolfsburg boys, or we're going to call them Wolfgang.
Well, yeah, right. The American Wolfgang or something.
American Wolfgang. So that's Uly Llanez, Bryang Kayo, and Michael Edwards. So Uly came on and played 63 minutes, or I should say started and played 63 minutes. Michael Edwards subbed on for the second half, and Bryang Kayo came on for the final 7 minutes, and that was in Wolfsburg 2's 4-2 loss. So, good to see 3 Americans on the pitch in Germany. That's kind of crazy, but unfortunate to see the loss. So I think Wolfsburg 2 start their season early September here. I don't think it's this weekend, but it could very well be. So hopefully we'll get to kind of see more, more minutes from them and some highlights soon too.
That's right. And maybe they'll join John Brooks one day there. That's what we can hope for.
True.
But, yeah. So heading over to Belgium, a player we really haven't talked about. Intriguing updates here with Joe Efford. started and scored a goal in a 3-1. Unfortunately, Vasilin Beveren lost to newly promoted Leuven, but nonetheless, it's nice to see Efford getting a score sheet, and I'm sure we'll be covering him more often here.
Yeah, an interesting player who came from the Greek league, if I'm not mistaken. So, yeah, one to keep your eye on. And staying in Belgium, we have Chris Durkin, who subbed on for the second half of Sint-Truiden's 1-1 draw with KAS Eupen.
And heading over to the championship here, Cameron Carter-Vickers, I should even say, I guess he's still at Tottenham in the Premier League, but it looks like Luton Town is really being linked to sign him on a full, permanent deal. It doesn't look like the manager is open to more loans, things like that. He really has his eyes set on CCV, and I think that would be a great move to find a permanent home there for Cameron Carter-Vickers.
Yeah, he did well at the end of last season, helped them stay afloat in the championship. So if you can get consistent minutes, I think that's good. The Tottenham ship has sailed, unfortunately. So it is what it is. And to end today, we have two young Yas. So the first one is Luca Fava, who's a 16-year-old midfielder who recently signed for Bochum in the 2 Bundesliga. And, Luca came from the Irvine Strikers Academy in California. So, congrats to him on signing in Germany, and we'll keep an eye on you.
That's great, Austin. And another player, which is interesting, 2002 U.S.-born winger Alex Mighten over with Nottingham Forest. Actually scored in their latest preseason game, and he's actually one of 3 U.S.-born players representing England's youth national teams, along with player, I'm sure we're all familiar with, is Florian Balogun, and then Yunus Musa. So again, he had some appearances, Mighten did, with last year for Forest, 8 appearances, and they did finish in 7th place. So kind of interesting to see his development here going forward, and one hopefully we can persuade to get back in the U.S. fold in the future.
So that's it for our episode today, guys. Thanks for watching. Make sure you like this video and subscribe to our channel down below.
And as well as subscribing, make sure to always check out, comment, and like all the great pictures and social media and videos, as well as Twitter. We want to hear from you guys and interact and get your thoughts about all these crazy events happening with McKennie and some other transfers and performances. So love to hear what you guys have to say.
That's very true. And we're also, on several podcasting platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. So make sure you subscribe to, those mediums as well. And Pat, hey, leave us a review, on Apple Podcasts. We always love to interact with you guys. And review would do great for us to help build the show, and also kind of, hear some of your guys' comments on what we can do to make it better. So, yeah.
That's right. And we're going to have a lot more episodes and podcasts out, because there's been a lot of development, like I mentioned, where we have players now at Ajax, Juventus, Chelsea, Dortmund, a lot of players coming up to Wolfsburg and Barca. It's a lot of high-profile clubs there, with a lot of our players starting to break through, Austin, and I think that will really only lead to one thing.
That is, one day we will win the World Cup.